welcome to Weather Geeks. We are live at the American Meteorological Society's annual meeting. We've got a live audience. It's something we've been doing for a while, and we are here today with Dr. Kerry Emanuel. And I'm going to say this, and I hope I don't embarrass him, but I think Dr. Kerry Emanuel is simply one of the best atmospheric scientists in the world. And thank you for coming out and joining us today.
I'm suitably embarrassed.
So we are here in New Orleans, and we certainly know what happened in New Orleans in 2005 with Hurricane Katrina. Being back here, what is your perspective? Does being here conjure up any thoughts as we think about the 10-year anniversary of Katrina? Tell us a little bit about Katrina and your career.
Well, Katrina was a game changer in the whole field of tropical meteorology. I think it's because it got many more people interested in the relationship between hurricanes and climate.
Right.
As far as my own career, it would put a big dent in that because I'm devoted, like most of my colleagues, to doing research all the time.
Right.
And suddenly we had to confront a lot of interest from the media, and we weren't used to dealing with them at that point. So it was a big learning curve.
Now, you know, you had a paper, I think, that came out around somewhat after that, 2005 or so. It really was a part of a massive scientific discussion about hurricanes and the role of climate change. We certainly know you've been involved with some attribution work the National Academy of Sciences is doing, and I'm involved in that as well. Tell us about that paper and that whole big debate over the natural cycle, the AMO, anthropogenic.
Yeah, it's a very interesting debate, actually. I started writing that paper back in 2004, and by coincidence, it came out 3 weeks before Katrina. And if it had not been for Katrina, that paper would have gotten some small attention among my colleagues. But what we showed was a strong correlation between Atlantic hurricane power and sea surface temperature, and that both had dipped down into the 1970s and 80s and been rocketing up. And in that paper, we listed basically an exhaustive list of potential causes, including natural variations.
Could I stop you there before you pick up? But part of that natural variation is something called the AMO, the Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation. For our viewers, could you explain what that is?
I'd like to be able to explain it to myself.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too.
But it is putatively a natural oscillation of the North Atlantic climate. Actually, it affects much of the Northern Hemisphere. That's supposed to have a period of many decades. Now, I have come to believe that the actual phenomenon has a period closer to 1 decade than many decades, and that the longer multi-decadal variations that have been attributed to that are very likely owing to another kind of man-made forcing that's not related to greenhouse gases.
So that's one of your factors. Continue on with what else you thought were in the mix.
So there is natural variability, there is greenhouse gas warming, and then there is another man-made effect which works the opposite direction. It actually suppresses hurricanes due to aerosols that are also a product of fossil fuel combustion.
And so particulates in the atmosphere and various things.
I think since 2005, the weight of the evidence suggests that we had something of a hurricane drought in the 70s and 80s that was almost, well, I won't say almost certainly, but probably caused by aerosols, and that the rocketing up was mostly a consequence of the Clean Air Act, not in the United States.
So the Clean Air Act was an act in the 70s and then into the 90s
that were cleaned up. Began in the 1970s, and it turns out that the aerosols, I think, that are important for Atlantic hurricanes actually originate in Europe, but Europe passed similar legislation.
So what did we learn from sort of all of the observations and the modeling related to Katrina? Are there lessons that we learned from a scientific perspective?
Oh, certainly we did. And I think we, as I say, Katrina catalyzed all this interest. But Katrina was also a very interesting storm in its own right. And I think it drove home the fact that we're not all that good at intensity forecasting. In fact, the real-time intensity forecasts weren't particularly good, although the track was spot on.
Track forecast was pretty good, and that's indicative of what we've been seeing in the community, improvements in track forecast, but not necessarily intensity.
That's right.
So what about the trends we're seeing? So there's quite a bit of body of research, and even some of those that we're debating have come together in some regards. What are the trends we're seeing now and perhaps going forward in the next 10 to 30 years?
I think there's been a lot more consensus building in the last 10 years. And I would say that there's a pretty strong consensus that the frequency of the most intense storms ought to go up in general as the climate warms. Doesn't mean they'll go up everywhere. and that rainfall produced by storms in general will go up. There's almost 100% consensus on that because the physics is very straightforward.
Right.
That's important because freshwater flooding is a big
We heard that from Max Mayfield here at the American Meteorological Society meeting. Right. Yeah.
The remaining debate has to do with things like the size of storms, the frequency of weak storms. We're all over the place on that still.
Right.
And the tracks of storms, which depend upon the large-scale circulation, and different models do different things with that.
And you've had some research out of your group at MIT that suggests the latitude is increasing northward, if you will, or at least in the northern hemisphere, in terms of the intensity of the storms?
Well, that's really the work of my colleague Jim Cosson at Wisconsin, but I participated
in that. Yeah, sure.
And yes, as you described, in the northern hemisphere, storms seem to be reaching their peak intensity further poleward, further northward.
Right.
And the same is true in the southern hemisphere.
Okay. Yeah. And so that certainly has implications because some of our big populated centers like our New York, Boston, they're higher latitude. What are you working on now? I know that's one thing, but any other sort of research related to tropical cyclones you're working on now in your group?
Well, of course, we're doing a lot of work on these storms. One of the things that has us fascinated is the role of the interaction between radiation, particularly infrared radiation, and clouds and water vapor, especially during the formative stages. It's turning out that that's perhaps more important than we used to think it was.
Right. So I want to make sure people understand, they're not talking about necessarily radiation. You're talking about the heat, the emission, if you will, and the we have light, heat, microwaves. When you say radiation, you're talking heat.
Yes. So when clouds develop, they trap infrared heat, and that can lead to the aggregation of the clouds.
In 20 seconds, you talked about dry hurricanes, and I want to get into that after the break, but what are those?
And so if you run an atmosphere and you don't have any latent heat of vaporization, you get a very unstable atmosphere and a big jump in temperature between the ocean and the atmosphere. It's that jump which in the real world and in these dry cases actually drives hurricanes, not latent heat release.
Now, when we get back, the tropics were quite active in the Eastern Pacific and in the Western Pacific. We had Hurricane Patricia. I want to get Dr. Emanuel's thoughts on that after the break, but first.
This week, we remember Dr. William Gray, a world-renowned meteorologist and pioneer hurricane season forecaster. Dr. Gray conducted groundbreaking research in a wide variety of topics, including hurricane genesis, hurricane structure, and cumulus convection. Dr. Gray mentored a countless number of graduate students, and I assure you his legacy will last for generations to come.
It's more than a network. It's how you stay connected. With CenturyLink as your trusted technology partner, you get an industry-leading broadband network and cloud and hosting services. CenturyLink, your link to what's next.
Relay for Life. Help the American Cancer Society save lives and celebrate life. Donate now at relayforlife.org.
Every mile is a possibility, a chance to get closer or much farther away. Every mile counts, so help clean and keep your engine working its best through all of them. Valero.
Put some distance between you and temptation with Meta Appetite Control. Clinically proven to help reduce hunger between meals. New from Metamucil, the #1 doctor-recommended brand.
Climate, science, weather, technology, they're the topics of our lives right now. So let's talk about it.
23.5 degrees, Tuesday at 11.
Currently in our area, 83 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Today, partly cloudy, high 86, winds east-northeast at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, low 74, winds south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Monday, partly cloudy, a stray shower or thunderstorm is possible, high 90, winds northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Here's our 7-day outlook.
want you to unplug, sort of get lost in the weather.
4x for those who jumpstart the weekend. The ones who want to see it all, hear it all, and feel it all summer long. Jeep Renegade. It's how we live 4x for summer. Get 0% APR for 60 months, plus 1,000 total cash allowance on 2016 Jeep Renegade models.
More people are driving Ram trucks than ever before. Guts Glory Ram.
A lot goes into new Quaker breakfast flats. Tart cranberries, crunchy almonds, sweet bananas, and more. Baked in with our wholesome oats. Help satisfy your morning hunger with every bite. New Quaker breakfast flats.
Call you back. Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
That's why State Farm is there.
What a day.
With car insurance for when things go wrong.
What a day!
But also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
And we're back live at the American Meteorological Society. We've got students, we've got attendees representing for their schools, and I'm here with one of the premier scientists in the world, Dr. Kerry Emanuel from MIT, talking about hurricanes. He's one of the top experts. Now, when we talk about hurricanes and climate, people often get tunnel vision. They talk about the Atlantic. But in 2015, yeah, it was below average in the Atlantic. But if we pivot over to the Pacific, we were seeing some quite active storms, typhoons, East Pac storms. Tell us a little bit about the Pacific season relative to the El Nino, for example, that we've been in.
Well, we're in a very strong El Nino, by some measures, maybe the second strongest we've recorded. And it's well known that El Nino suppresses hurricane activity in the Atlantic. We had a quiet season, but it enhances activity, particularly in the Eastern Pacific. But both the Eastern and Western Pacific have been very active.
Can you talk a little bit for our viewers about why the El Nino is thought to suppress activity in the Atlantic and boost it in the Pacific?
So there are two things. It tends to make the atmosphere warm relative to the ocean in the Atlantic by causing subsidence, and there tends to be a lot of wind shear. But in the Pacific,
wind shear is changing of the wind direction as we go up in speed or height.
In the Pacific, the ocean gets warm relative to the atmosphere, and that tends to promote hurricanes.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about something. I get into debates with people about this. I see it in social media. There's this acronym, or we call ACE. What is ACE? What does it stand for? And why do people get into sort of big discussions about ACE as it relates to hurricanes in the Pacific or the Atlantic?
Well, we're interested in metrics that measure the power of hurricanes. And ACE and power dissipation are two closely related metrics.
What does it stand for? It's accumulated cyclone energy, I believe.
Accumulated cyclone energy, that's right. So it's just the wind speed squared, averaged over the whole storm.
So I wanted to make sure we got that out there, because it's often a buzzword topic we hear when people are like you and I are talking about storms. Now, hurricanes impact life. We saw that here in New Orleans with Katrina. We've been in a drought in the Atlantic in terms of landfalling storms. And by the way, just because we don't have landfalling hurricanes in the Atlantic doesn't mean we don't have hurricanes. They're out there, but we haven't seen any landfalling storms, particularly the Cat 3 and higher. Why do you think that is, and what are the implications of that from a public safety standpoint?
Well, we had Sandy, and Sandy was not a high-intensity storm, but it certainly wreaked havoc. And also, if you look at landfalls that are not in the U.S., but in Mexico, the Caribbean, they've been fairly plentiful. So I think the evidence is that this is just a matter of chance.
So, that's... but there are some colleagues walking around this hall that might actually disagree with that, but I think I kind of fall where you fall on that. Let's revisit Hurricane Patricia. By many accounts, the strongest hurricane in the Northern Hemisphere on record. Some people said the meteorology community overhyped that storm. I don't know how you can overhype a storm that is the strongest we've seen on record, but it didn't really cause havoc in Mexico when it made landfall. Is that a problem, or what are your thoughts on Patricia?
Patricia was a storm in which we experienced incredibly good luck from two perspectives. When it did make landfall, it went into a very sparsely populated part of Mexico, which was just a blessing. We also got magnificent data sets by overflying that storm with a B-57 and penetrating it with other aircraft.
Right.
It was the most intense in the records, not just the records of NHC, but by certain measures from the satellites.
Right.
So there's certain objectivity to that.
And let me stop you there, and we're going to pick up after break. When we come back from the break, I want to talk to Dr. Emanuel about what some of the big challenges are going forward for hurricane researchers, and then get his thoughts on what advances we need to improve our understanding of hurricanes going forward. After the break on Weather Geeks, but let's hear it from our crowd here. We've got a live crowd that's gathered. Be right back.
A true traveller's journey doesn't end at the horizon, so it most certainly doesn't end at Gate C47.
With Travelocity, get help through social media 24/7.
Travelocity. Wander wisely.
You want a real fish sandwich? You know where to find it. Try our new Coastal Cod Sandwich at Long John Silver's. Our panko-breaded Alaskan cod is served up just the way you'd expect a real fish sandwich to be. Because at Long John Silver's, you deserve more.
For the past 27 days, 4 men have outlasted authorities by making their getaway in a Prius.
This game ends now.
To catch a Prius,
you gotta be a Prius.
Guys, what's that?
Oh, man.
Toyota, let's go places.
I love you.
Cabela's Father's Day sale. Give Dad the gift that always fits. A Cabela's gift card. Shop in-store and online at Cabela's.com.
What's it like to be in good hands? Man, it's like pure power at your fingertips. Like the power to earn Allstate reward points every time I drive.
Want my number?
And cash back for driving safe. And the power to automatically find your car. I see you, car, and I got the power to know who's coming and when if I break down. You must be Jerry. Hey, N means getting more from your car insurance with the all-powerful DriveWise app.
It's good to be in good hands.
Their trip of a lifetime became a fight to make it home alive.
The weather was hell on earth.
I knew that we were in trouble.
Go, go, go!
Extreme Weather, The Survivors. Tonight at 9 on the Weather Channel.
You're not gonna watch it. No, you're not gonna watch it. We can't let you download on the go. You'll just have to miss it. Yeah, you'll just have to miss it.
No thanks, I have X1 from Xfinity, so.
Don't fall for DirecTV. Xfinity lets you download your shows from anywhere. Upgrade to an Xfinity X1 Triple Play and save when you bundle. Call or go online today.
I used to like that song.
The delicate skin on your neck can show age. Or not.
New Gold Bond Neck and Chest Cream helps improve texture and increase elasticity. 97% had visibly firmer skin. New Gold Bond Neck and Chest for visibly firmer skin.
Skin's ability to retain moisture weakens with age. Gold Bond Strength and Resilience has skin-plumping moisturizers and proteins from the Resurrection Plant to bring skin back to life. 84% saw an improvement in skin texture in 5 days. Gold Bond Strength and Resilience.
Right now.
Weekend Recharge is... We want you to unplug so you get lost in the weather.
Spring is a pretty good season. It's sort of invigorating, and the change in the weather is fascinating.
Spring weather is that transitional season where we start to see thunderstorms develop.
The weather is really changeable in the springtime, and you get pretty exciting storms. I mean, that's something that I just really love.
My appreciation for spring weather has grown immensely at the Weather Channel. Severe weather is so fascinating to see it develop. If you love the weather as much as we do, join us at weloveweather.tv.
Currently in our area, 84 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Today, sunshine and clouds mixed. High 85. Winds east-northeast at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tonight, cloudy intervals, low 74. Winds south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Monday, intervals of clouds and sunshine. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. High 90. Here's our 7-day outlook.
We are back here at the American Meteorological Society. We've got people, I see some good friends of mine in the audience. We're talking with Dr. Kerry Emanuel from MIT about hurricanes. Let's just kind of pull out our crystal ball for a second. What do you and the community, as you representative of the community, need going forward to improve our understanding of hurricanes?
We need much better measurements in hurricanes. And fortunately, technology is coming to our aid with all kinds of fancy things, particularly drones. People know about drones, the military applications of drones, but they're great for hurricane research.
Yeah, I agree. Now, but how do we get at this improving the intensity? We mentioned this earlier in the show, that the track forecasts have gotten relatively good, but the intensity of, and I know we did some work when I was at NASA and hot towers and these convective bursting storms, but what do we need to make advancements there?
So there are two fundamental things. One is understanding the physics behind it. For example, there's a strong interaction between the ocean and the atmosphere. The ocean, the hurricane causes cold water to upwell.
Upwelling, right.
But to predict that, we have to know what the temperature of the upper ocean is. In practice, we don't know it very well. But there's a more fundamental thing, and that is the fundamental predictability. You know, Lorenz taught us that there are limits on that.
Right.
For all we know, the fundamental predictability limit on forecasting hurricane intensity may only be a few days.
You made a point about that here at the AMS about accepting that. I think you made a fairly strong statement in the presidential forum that was held here at the meeting about sort of the limits of predictability. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, what Lorenz taught us is that for systems that are chaotic, like our atmosphere, there's a fundamental limit. It doesn't matter how precisely you measure things, how good your models are, there is a limit beyond which you cannot go, which for the large-scale atmosphere may be 2 weeks. But for other sub-problems like hurricane intensity, it might be much shorter. The fact is we don't know what it is for hurricane intensity, and that's something we can find out, and we probably will.
Now, I know that you mentioned earlier about storms reaching their intensity at higher latitude, so to speak. You live in the Northeast, in the Boston area. You've got some work going on. I know I've heard about some of your work with cities. I mean, you're bringing this out of the realm of the research and working with stakeholders and practitioners. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we have tried to bring physics to bear on the whole problem of assessing hurricane risk in the present climate, but also as the climate changes. Right. And we've helped the city of New York under Michael Bloomberg assess how their hurricane and storm surge risk may evolve. We're in the middle of doing the same thing for the city of Boston.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's where we are. We're bridging our research knowledge with our stakeholder and practitioners. Now, finally, as we draw to a close here in perhaps this last minute or so, what is your biggest concern as a scientist, as a citizen of the planet going forward?
Well, I have a big concern about the general problem of global warming and getting people to take it seriously. We're very finely adapted to the climate we have. It's maybe not the ideal climate for humans, but that's the climate we're adapted to. And any change in either direction is going to be serious. Right. And we just need to pay attention to that and act rationally to do what we can to minimize the risks.
Now, one last question, because I think we have students here in the audience and various people. What's a typical day like for Dr. Kerry Emanuel?
If there were a typical day, I tell you.
So you don't have any typical days?
No, all my days, I get up early, I get up late, I work late or I work early. Meetings, conferences, travel. Yeah. They're never 2 days the same.
Yeah, what would be advice that you give? Because again, I do, and I know you're so humble, but I do consider you one of our top scientists and scholars in the field. What advice would you give to some of these students here in the audience in terms of your career?
Figure out what you're passionate about and follow it.
Right. So follow your passion and follow your dreams. We're going to have to leave it right there. I'm so thankful for you coming out. We are here at the American Meteorological Society meeting in New Orleans, site of one of the most devastating hurricanes in U.S. history. And I thank Dr. Kerry Emanuel for coming out and adding his perspective. I want to thank our live audience as well for coming out. You can join us every Sunday on Weather Geeks here on the Weather Channel, and you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. See you next week.
Is lightning always produced by a thunderstorm?
My experience with USAA is awesome. Homeowners insurance, life insurance, automobile insurance. I spent 20 years active duty. They still refer to me as gunnery sergeant when I call. Being a USAA member, because of my service in the military, to pass that on to my kids, something that makes me happy. My name is Roger Zapata, and I'm a USAA member for life.
USAA. We know what it means to serve. Get an insurance quote and see why 92% of our members plan to stay for life.
Thunderstorms always have lightning, but you can have lightning without a thunderstorm.
Looks like someone is baking fresh bread in the store every single day. Wonder who? If you don't already know, try it at Walmart's low prices.
Poor mouth breather. Allergies, stuffy nose, can't sleep. Take that. A Breathe Right nasal strip instantly opens your nose up to 38% more than allergy medicine alone. Shut your mouth and say goodnight, mouth breathers. Breathe Right.
That bumper's not going anywhere. We could just have more tape. Gorilla Tape, of course.
Gorilla Tape's double-thick adhesive and rugged outer shell is 3 times thicker for a hold that lasts for the toughest jobs on planet Earth.
See me.
See me.
Don't stare at me. See me.
See me.
See me to know.
That psoriasis is just something that I have.
I'm not contagious.
See me to know that I won't stop
Until I find what works.
Discover Cosentyx, a different kind of medicine for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, proven to help the majority of people find clear or almost clear skin. 8 out of 10 people saw 75% skin clearance at 3 months, while the majority saw 90% clearance. Do not use if you are allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, you should be tested for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you have received a vaccine or plan to. If you have inflammatory bowel disease, tell your doctor if symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions may occur.
See me.
See me.
See me on my way.
Find clear skin and a clearer path forward. For a different kind of medicine, ask your dermatologist about Cosentyx.
Think fixing your windshield is a big hassle? Not with SafeLight. This family needed their windshield replaced, but their daughter's heart was set on going to the zoo. So we said, if you need SafeLight to come to the zoo, we'll come to the zoo. Oh yeah, we can fix that. Only SafeLight can fix your windshield anywhere in the U.S. with our exclusive mobile glass shops and our one-of-a-kind True Seal technology for a reliable bond.
Thanks so much.
Service that fits your schedule. Hey. That's another SafeLight advantage.
SafeLight repair, SafeLight replace.
Johnson. Spring is a pretty good season. It's sort of invigorating, and the change in the weather is fascinating.
Spring weather is that transitional season where we start to see thunderstorms develop.
The weather is really changeable in the springtime, and you get pretty exciting storms. I mean, that's something that I just really love.
My appreciation for spring weather has grown immensely at the Weather Channel. Severe weather is so fascinating to see it develop. If you love the weather as much as we do, join us at weloveweather.tv.
Currently in our area, 84 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Today, sunshine and clouds mixed. High 85. Winds east-northeast at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Tonight, cloudy intervals. Low 74. Winds south at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Monday, intervals of clouds and sunshine. A stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. High 90. Here's our 7-day outlook.
It's sort of invigorating, and the change in the weather is fascinating.
Spring weather is that transitional season where we start to see thunderstorms develop.
The weather is really changeable in the springtime, and you get pretty exciting storms. I mean, that's something that I just really love.
My appreciation for spring weather has grown immensely at the Weather Channel. Severe weather is so fascinating to see it develop. If you love the weather as much as we do, join us at weloveweather.tv.
A little rain, a little shine, a little change all the time. When the weather is fine.
Come on down to Weather Underground, weeknights at 6 on the Weather Channel.
Now on 23.5, he provided the soundtrack of the night for the early 2000s, but techno music king Moby is now spending his days devoted to animal rights activism. An avowed vegan, he'll tell us why it's better for the planet. This was supposed to be the year of the Godzilla El Nino. We'll talk to the man who called it that, and he still stands by his words. And they're still in the middle of a drought. So what has LA County done to coax more water from the clouds? Right now, 23.5. They are spectacular views of our Earth as never seen before in the new IMAX film, A Beautiful Planet. Astronauts not only the first ones to get this view, but filmmakers for the first time as well, sharing those images with the rest of us. Veteran IMAX director Tony Myers on this out-of-the-world picture and how they made it happen. I would say you're an explorer, undersea explorer, and even in space.
I sort of feel that way.
I bet you do.
I'm incredibly privileged, and it's so much fun. It's so interesting, and I've had a complete education working on these films.
There's no bigger name than yours in the films that we're talking about, under the water, in space, the most difficult IMAX 3D films to shoot in the world. How did you get to become the producer, writer, editor, director of all of these?
In fact, there are many people that make these films, and the underwater films, I don't shoot those. Those were made by Howard Hall, who's the most eminently talented underwater photographer that there is. The astronauts shoot our movies in space for us.
Yeah. The newest one out is Beautiful Planet. And in this, you just said, the astronauts became your photographers. How did it get to be that you could get astronauts and train astronauts to become filmmakers?
We made our first space film back in 1984. It was the first time we ever flew IMAX cameras to space. And the co-inventor of IMAX, Graham Ferguson, was head of the unit then. And he developed a kind of curriculum for teaching astronauts how to be filmmakers.
Now, technology changed a lot in IMAX. I remember seeing some of the original IMAX equipment. I've never seen a bigger setup to shoot in my entire life.
So we flew the most basic 2D camera there was to begin with. That was bulky enough, but then along came 3D cameras which run 2 strips of film simultaneously. That camera, which is the size of a bar fridge, couldn't fly that. You have to redesign a smaller, more compact camera. So we developed a camera that shot a left and a right eye on the same piece of film.
Well, along comes the digital age.
Of course, the advent of digital revolutionized our operations in space. What had been a huge, great big bulky camera, or cameras, became very small, compact cameras. The dynamic range of the actual capture itself on film, our 65mm negative, was too slow to capture things at night. For instance, you couldn't see lightning, you couldn't see stars. It was just black space above the Earth. Now you see the entire Milky Way.
And you see that.
And you see all the cities at night and lightning.
There are just amazing amounts of thunderstorms. You see thousands of flashes per minute. An unbelievable amount of power. When you think about a giant lightning bolt going off near your house and how loud it is and how that scares you and the dog runs under the table. Well, when you see it from space, there's so many of these things happening at the same time. It's truly amazing.
The night stuff is absolutely incredible.
And in this film, is this the first time that we're going to be able to see all of that?
All of that at real speed. As we're teaching the crews, we develop a shopping list of scenes. And we always have said, for instance, if an alien comes up and puts his face in the window, don't not shoot it because it's not on the list, you know.
Go ahead and fire up the camera.
You're the directors, you choose.
So now you're sitting here looking at this stuff practically real time being fed to you. And you're seeing these first nighttime images. What were the ones that just were jaw-dropping for you, the ones that you'll never forget seeing for the first time?
I would say the boot of Italy. There were whole passes that went from Northern Europe right down across the boot of Italy.
And this is the nighttime stuff.
This is nighttime.
Right.
Absolutely spectacular to look at. And then Butch Wilmore, he called down to say, well, what do I wear to the Academy Awards? I just shot the shot of all night shots, which is in the film, which is all of North America looking north with Aurora on the horizon. The shooting period was about 13 months.
And during that time, there, of course, were big storms on the planet. What were some of the memorable ones that you guys caught?
Well, we have a wonderful scene of Typhoon Misak, which was, I think of all the hurricanes, I've never, ever seen an eye like that. Totally scary.
Beautiful Planet, you hear a celebrity voice.
You do.
What is happening to our Earth?